Hey, welcome back. I'm pretty excited to pull out the Rosies today. I've got a good overview for you here. I've added some information since the last video. I'm finally going digital. I used to handwrite these out, but realized it's better for everyone to go digital here. I'll hold this here in front of the screen for a second in case you want to pause it, take a screenshot or whatever. I'm also putting this both in the description and the comments. And when you see it there, it may even be updated since I oftentimes go do some research after the video because I'm compelled and realize I didn't know something or whatever. So I'm going to walk you through the collecting that I've done since the last 101 video. This is not going to be a full comprehensive review of some of the history of Oz and whatnot. That's all been covered in the first video, so please see that video. Maybe I'll like it in or link it in the description or something. If you're interested, I go through the genesis of Oz. Here we're going to talk more about some of the Rosies here. I've learned more about the variants, the adjustments that they made over time, and more. And I've collected a few of the pens, which I was very lucky. For the most part, community members sold me these for table. I paid a little more for the Blurple, I'll be honest. They only made 7 of them. I don't know if that's going to be something they make a lot more of. I've seen them now do the satin, I think 2 or 3 times so far. So I do know that those are going to be ongoing. It is my favorite of the new pens. I really like the satin pen. The finish on it has a little more texture to it because of the milling. And yeah, I like that one the most right now. I'm going to go through what I've collected in terms of some of these older ones. So it's really exciting. I was able to get number 10. So that's the 10th one ever made. Number 40, the 40th one ever made. And quite a few others that were not in that original video. And I'll talk you through what I did. And unfortunately, I don't have a few of the others that I had in the last video. Most of them were newer variants because I was buying more of the newer ones to start. And then since then, I've collected more of the older ones. So I don't have a radial pattern here because I gave one up on trade for this one right here, number 819, which was in the first batch that had, and actually I realize now I wrote in-house, first in-house hardware on number 819 there. There's another personal reason that I like that number regarding my family. But I just realized I don't think it's number 819. I think it's like number 817 or something was the first one. So I'll go figure out what the correct number is and I'll put that in the description. Sorry, I'm just getting over some sickness, so just taking a swig of water there. But let's go into it. For the most part, what you learned in the last video is pretty much going to hold true. There are a couple interesting ones that I've learned about along the way. There are a ton of interesting earlier ones. At some point, I want to do a whole focus on some of these early variants because they did so much cool stuff back then. They're so hard to get. The only ones I've had a chance at getting have been modified and not interesting to me, but I did get this fully original one here, number 10, which I'm excited to show you. But I'll go into those. Also to note, our number 1000 and number 1500 were very special ones. They were done on auction. I think he may have done more auctions, but at least those 2 were done on auction. They commanded crazy numbers. This one this week, number 1500, right here. As I noted, it got bid up to 4,300. The Damascus one, number 1000, had gotten bid up, I think, to 6,000 when it got bought last year or whenever it was. I think it was last year, yeah. So some really interesting things that have happened over time. The one tie pattern that I've not been able to get a hold of here is the crosshatch. I got very close to getting a crosshatch. There's a particularly special one that I've been trying to get that has like an orange peel on it. You know who you are if you're watching this video. Yeah, but I can't quite justify the price at this time, so that one's not in the collection yet. And then there's, quite a few others like carbon fiber variants as well as Damascus variants I've not been able to get a hold of. But generally you'll see here the smooth finish, the mag finish, which I did not have in the prior video. I got the Anno one that was in the prior video. I don't think 256 was in it, but I can't remember. But this one has a Zerk hardware. Both, let me pull it up carefully here. Damascus here on the back spacer, zirconium on the pocket clip and on the hardware, which is really cool on the pivot hardware there. So I think that one's really neat. Let me get this back in here carefully. I realize I jammed these in here way too closely, so let me move them back a little bit so they don't bump. And let me show you a little bit about number 10, because I think that's dessert first on this particular video. Is I got number 10. I did do a full video unboxing on this, but it didn't have the original hardware on it and stuff. It had some aftermarket backspacer and pocket clips. So I'm excited to have this original hardware back on. This one has been a user. You can see some of the snails on it, and there are even some little scratches here and there on the blade. But what's super cool about this one is that the hand rub satin blade. That is just really neat. A really nice finish there. And, you know, I don't unfortunately do a lot of these videos during the day, but if I did, I think it would further even emphasize how beautiful this blade is. Now, I personally prefer a stone wash or a, you know, even a dark wash or a, which is new, by the way. It's a new finish that he started doing recently. So I called that out here that he's now doing dark wash finishes as of, I should say he and the team, because now it's become a pretty big team. They've grown to 6 people. It was just Daniel Osborne about a year or two ago. And then his brother, and now it's up to 5 or 6 people, which is exciting. And they're cranking out a lot more volume lately. Some of these drops will have 30 to 50, 60 Rosies on them. First Darkwashed blade was mid-February, about a month ago. And first Little John pen had come out as well at that point. So that's the first time he's dropped pens. You can see I did end up acquiring one of the original Pry Bars here as well. I'm not a big Pry Bar collector or whatever, but nor a pen collector, but I did want to get the first 3 that he put out. I thought that would be pretty cool. But let's stick to it here. One of the things that you'll also note about this one is it is an early one. If you remember from the first video, I called out number 117 and below do not have removable lock bar inserts. The other thing I noticed about this is it has very late lockup, and I don't know what the right term is, but the lock bar pressure is quite heavy. Like, to actually get it to drop, you're pushing a bit harder than some of the new variants. But overall, a beautiful example. Everything works perfectly here, even though I'm not always working perfectly. And just really shows, you know, even this is from 2019, that they hold up super well even under use, and that they're made to be used, which is really cool. So this particular one just had a matching, I guess it would be, I don't know if this finish is bead blast or maybe even vapor blast. I can't remember what it's called, vapor something, but he did have vapor something along the way. It does have this Damascus clip. It's getting a little faded, so I am trying to talk to him about getting this little piece of history back in for a spa and have it looking like it did in 2019 per his comments, which I love the idea of. We'll see if we can make that happen, and I'll definitely do a video if I can get this thing spiffed up. But it is a beauty. You will note that on this one, there's no swedge. So that's something that I did miss in the first video, and I actually will add that because I realize now I don't have it on this particular list, but I'll add that so we'll have 22 bullets or more. But this one does not have a swedge on the front. So that was something, let's see. I'll put this right over here. Number 40 also would not, I believe. Yep, no swedge on this one. So I got to go look up where the first swedge came in, and I will make sure that that's included in the description as well if you're interested, because that's kind of a cool, notable thing. Number 265 rather here does have it, which is really cool. And this one's also a really neat, like, acid etched finish here. But yeah, you can see somewhere between 40 and 265, they did start doing the swedge, and they've done them ever since. But some of these very early ones do not have the swedge on them, which is really neat to note. So this is number 40. Number 40 also has this. I don't know if this is the first time he did this hardware. I'll have to go look that up. You can see someone put a mirror polish on this thing, so it's not completely new. It was definitely carried a little bit, but it's in very, very, very good shape. This is, again, a 2019 knife, I believe. And man, it is a beauty. So this was actually not called Darkwashed. This was called Blackened on the scale. So this is a blackened scale, matching here on the pocket clip and on the back spacer. Just a really neat variant. Went with the not matching hardware, but it's a little flatter than what you see on the hardware for number 10 and a lot of the other first, 500, 700. I can't remember how many before they started switching off of this hardware, but we'll get into it here. So let's get these guys back in their spots. And what I'll do, so I remember where I'm at, is I'll flip them the other way. And that way we will know that I have covered them. All right, so we hit this one a little bit, but it is one of my favorites, so I don't mind showing it again here. Again, zirconium, you do have that pivot, and this is number 265 here. So let's get this one down. Number 330 was shown in the last video, so I won't spend too much time on it, but notable is the beautiful stone-washed finish on the blade, and of course the Blurple anodized. I know that they did more anos before this one, but Blurple ano plus the bronze ano on the pocket clip and on the backspace are really neat there on those. That is definitely one of the pride of the collection, one of the ones that people hit me up the most to try and buy for me. And fortunately, I'm not willing to sell that one. This one guy keeps trying to get this one for me as well, which is funny. So I'm just going to jump ahead to Little John pen here. These just came out in the last 30 days. I was able in under 30 days to acquire 3 of them on the secondary market because I didn't win any of the lotteries. By the way, I don't know if I covered it in my last video because I don't even know if I had entered lotteries, but I've probably entered 5 of them since. He does a weekly lottery on Sundays, currently at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's where you can enter to try and get a win. I'm just going to tell you right now, don't go in there expecting to win because you'll be very disappointed. It's a very low probability to win. There are a ton of people entering those lotteries. I'm not discouraging you from doing it. I'm discouraging you from expecting to win because you will definitely be disappointed. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but if there are, say, around 20, 30 knives and 20, 30 pens, it's probably in the 1 to 50 to 1 to 200, 1 in 200 range. So you're much more likely to not win than win. All right, over here we have a really cool one, number 456. This always confuses me because I have 456 and 265, and I always mix those up a little bit. But this is a completely factory configuration, had a brilliant Damascus, and this isn't like my normal style. Like if I was going to go out, I don't know that I'd take this, but in terms of the artistic execution, the Blurple ano on the hardware, and then the crazy Damascus backspacer and pocket clip, really with the dark wash. And it's not quite a dark wash, like it may even be called that back then. It may have been called darkened or something like that. These ones are a little lighter on the D10. I can feel it right away versus the newer ones, but also a really nice looking stone washed finish there on the blade. Do have the swedge there, and that is just a really nice looking one. I do want to just point out the difference in these dark wash. Here's a new one, 1081. Really notice those differences there, right? They're actually kind of stone washing it. So I don't know if they put something darkened on it and then stone wash it or how it works, but some of the earlier ones look like this and some of the newer ones start to look like this, maybe around here when we get up to this guy, which I think is in the 500s. So something to note. I hadn't really noticed that difference until I got this one in hand. I was like, oh wow, that's not even, doesn't have that whole dark wash look to it at all. So that is a little different. It's almost like I don't think it's like an ano, but some sort of coating on there. So maybe a Cerakote or something. This one I believe was either, I think I said bead blasted in the video, but I think it was actually vapor, or gosh, now I'm forgetting. I knew I should have done my research ahead of time, but I forgot what this finish is here. Not bead blasted, but he does, and it's not glass blasted. It's something more expensive, and it's going to drive me crazy until I remember it, but I'll come back to it. Zerk blasted? I think it's Zerk blasted, Zerblasted, or whatever it's called. What's cool on this one is that it's not a polished, you can almost hear it there. You can hear it. It's not a polished Damascus, it's actually a matte Damascus on this one. This is number, this one here is number 4, sorry, let me take this off screen here so I can see it, 498. I did have this one in the last video. What you'll notice here is this is a different finish. So it's not, I think it is Zerk blasted or Zerblasted or whatever, or vapor. I don't know if it's called vapor honed or vapor blasted or something like that, but you can see that's not looking like that stone wash finish here on the blade. It's quite beautiful on the blade finish. It's almost kind of like a bead blast finish there, but do note that that is different than that stone wash you saw in some of the other variants there. So that's number 498 there. And this one had a matching backspacer with a, which he's done often. Those are kind of two different things for them, is the backspacer and the pocket clip. They don't always match. This one, however, does match, and it's brilliant that it does because it is super cool. This is number 522. This one does have that dark washed look on it. Oof, and this disgustingly cool looking acid washed. I can't remember which ones are acid etched versus acid washed, or if they're all acid etched or what. I think it's acid washed on this, although it does look a little different than some of the other acid washed that I've had, like this other one here. I've had a couple of them. I've actually bought and sold quite a few of these since the last video. But this one is a really cool variant. I'd say probably contests very closely with this one for me as in terms of my favorite in the collection. And it has a oil slick zirc, which was an option when you were custom ordering back then. And it's both the backspacer as oil slick zirconium, as well as the pocket clip, which is really cool. Just a really neat variant there. Still a little bit on that light detent side there. This one right here got from a good buddy that I've made friends with since the transaction. This one's also got the light on the detent. And you can see almost kind of like a newer stonewash look. It doesn't look quite like the early stonewash. It's like a tighter stonewash there. And then they seem to have gone back more recently to the original one. They do change things up a little bit, or maybe it's more like this now. But this is number, I think, 708. 708 there. So number 708, and this is, again, in the mag pattern, but this one is dark washed. So this is very similar to what you see on those golf putter versions there. Great feeling. And then you actually had this pretty cool flattened hardware on the, and I don't remember where the flattened hardware, what number was that off the top of my head? This, by the way, is Z-Finit, right? Because this is number 522. The first Magnacut came out number 540. This is one of the last ones that was done in Z-Finit. Number 708 would be Magnacut, but it was a lower HRC rating, like a 61 Rockwell hardness, whereas the newer ones are 63 to 64. So there's a few different ones. I think there's like a 61 to 62, and then a 63 to 64. So I think they kind of matured the way that they were doing their hardening. Let me get the number though on that. Maybe I don't have it here. I'm not going to bore you too much with it, but there is a point where they went to the flat hardware, and I can't remember what number it is off the top of my head, and I'm having trouble finding it just looking at this sheet here. So I do need to make sure that that's included in there as well if I don't have it on there. But anyways, really nice variant here, and glad to have it. This one was lightly carried too, so I can carry it a little and not feel bad about it, which is neat. But you can see now we're on that newer hardware. Now at the same time, not the same time, a few variants later, that hardware goes in-house on number 819, so we'll come to that, don't forget, because I might. Here is a really nice one. This is number 792. This one actually I have the original hardware. And what's interesting, and this just kind of characterizes the community a little bit, is that this is original Damascus hardware that was from another Rosie that someone took off because perhaps they didn't like it or whatever, and they sold to the person. You know, then you don't. This is not cheap. If you're going to get that, you're going to probably spend $200, $300 just for that Damascus, because it's very, you can't, you know, custom order this. You can get some aftermarket versions. They look a little different. They're made by a guy called the Midas Touch on Instagram if you want to check it out. But this is the Silver Surfer. I do have the original Silver Surfer hardware. And what's cool about this particular variant is that this one was, number 792 here, was one of the ones that was called the Consolation Rosie. There was an incident at Bladeshow, I think, 2020 or 2020, yeah, 2021 or something, 2021, I guess. And he was supposed to have knives, and somehow people ended up buying them or whatever. So he ended up taking, I don't know, 20 or 30 orders for people that were standing in line that should have gotten them and didn't because of like other vendors buying them or something like that. And he sold, you know, this along with some others to some people. So this is kind of a cool one where it was bought in a little unconventional way. Not by me, but by someone else. This is a really cool version. A buddy of mine has this version as well. You can see it has been carried a little bit and has a couple small little lines in it. Unfortunately, this one's probably a hardware line there, but this one's probably from carry or whatever. And this one is that first bucket, and there was maybe 5 or 10 knives that were made. You can see this is like a DLC code or a darkened or something hardware, but this is the first time that they made that hardware in-house in Indiana, which is pretty cool. Also on the back spacer, matching the hardware there. Really neat variant. When it got to me, it had been kind of upgraded, quote unquote, with stonewashed or polished hardware to kind of match it a little better. But I love putting this back to its factory configuration and reflecting on the fact this is the first time that they made hardware in-house. Just a really neat variant there. And this is not a stonewashed one. So if you ever see, they have this concept called the PJ or the plain Jane. Someone asked me the other day, what does PJ stand for? Plain Jane. And those are typically like a stonewashed variant. I don't know what this finish is, but it is definitely not a stone. Well, maybe it is a stonewash finish. I don't know. But it's kind of a higher polish. It doesn't look like titanium stonewashed like I've normally seen it. It's brighter and very cool. So I'd love to go find out what, I haven't looked it up, what the finish is that they put on that one, because it's really neat. Here's just another Silver Surfer, because you can't have too many of these. This one was a user. This one I can immediately feel the stronger detent, by the way. You can even see how it pulled out of my hand there, because I was starting to adjust to these earlier ones. But this is number 1058, number 1058, yes. And sorry, it's kind of hard going back and forth between the video. And these Silver Surfers are very in demand. When I see these on the groups, they go super fast. This is Magnacut now, getting into that 63, 64 Rockwell hardness. That one right there might be as well. I think some of these are in the 63, 64 as well. I don't know about this one, but definitely these ones, this whole row would be in the newer Rockwell hardness. I think it was in the 700s or something that they started doing that. But man, beautiful, beautiful knife, and kind of my go-to if I ever carry one. It's this one right here or that one right there. But this is the more common one. I now have this in my knife comparisons briefcase that sits right next to me on the desk right there. Because that to me is like one of the benchmarks in a really good American-made knife right now. And lastly, unfortunately, because I gave up for that one, my radial, which I have been starting to search for another one. You can see here, this is number 1081, a number that also means a little something to my family, which is cool. So I've got kind of these two numbers that reflect on the family there. And beautiful Darkwashed on the Gulf Putter milling. This one actually ended up getting traded out by me for one like that, and then it ended up, I got that one, and then this guy decided to get another knife, so I bought it back from him. So I've actually traded this one away and gotten it back, which I love, and very excited to have it. So as you can see, there's been a lot since then. There have been 1,500 made, and I don't have a lot of the new ones. The new ones have some pretty cool variants, a lot of cool things they've done with the radial pattern in particular. But the last things I'll cover off on here, I got the Pry Bar, so that took a little time to track one of these down. But this is the Silver Surfer one with a pocket clip, bottle opener, Pry Bar. Very beautiful how they do this. I think these were about $100 when he was making them. They don't make them right now. I don't know if they're going to bring them back. I'm hoping they do, and I'm confident they're going to do very well if they do. But that matches the Silver Surfer there, which makes for a very nice carry kit. And then this is the Darkwashed. This was in the first run of pens ever made. So I'm very happy to have it and don't expect that I'd ever let it go. And luckily someone was very kind to sell this to me at table price instead of price gouging. I've seen these sell for as much as table price, by the way, and this one I think was I think these were $205 or $210, and this was $215 or $220, plus shipping, and then people charge me for shipping. So I got this for a reasonable table price plus shipping. Although it's small and it took me a little while to adjust to it, it's starting to grow on me. Either way, this is more of a collectible for me because it's like the first pen that they ever made, and plan to keep this one in the collection for quite some time. Really cool Darkwash finish on there with the green anno. And lastly, the satin pen I think is really, I don't collect pens, just to be clear. I have one, what we'll call EDC pen, or one cool pen, aside from the ones that I've gotten free for work or through random situations or whatever. and that's a Tactile Knife Company full-size pen that I use at my desk, not meant for really going in my backpack. I have like a, a nice tie pen or whatever, but I don't, have like what I'll call these modern EDC pens, like the one made by, Grimsmo, I think, has one, and a few others. But these, being close to my heart on Oz, love the, the overall look. I wish they were a little bit bigger. I'd be more encouraged to use this. It is truly an EDC pen made to be carried in your pocket, next to your knife without overwhelming your pocket, and does a very good job of that for using a pen in a pinch, or maybe you don't want to share, the pen with someone else and you don't want to use the kind of used pens at a restaurant. Beautiful option here to be able to just sign real quick, put a tip on there, and sign your name. So do appreciate this as a carry pen for sure. Not as much of a backpack pen where I'm gonna actually use it for 2 hours in a meeting or whatever. Not quite big enough for me on that use case. So I'm gonna probably buy another Tactile for that one, unless they come out the Big John. These are called the Little Johns. Those and that comes from John Hancock, he said, which is cool. By the way, this comes from Teddy Roosevelt. Not, if you were wondering where the name Roosevelt comes from, he did mention that that comes from Teddy Roosevelt, which is kind of cool. So good to know. And that's about it. So that's a nice little run through. Again, just wanted to call out some of those new updates and new lessons learned or new learnings that I've come across along the way about the in-house hardware, the Little John pen, the first Darkwashed blade, which I don't have an example of, unfortunately, but you can check it out on their Twitter. A little bit about the auction, Rosies, and just walking you through a little bit of what I've collected, especially number 10, which is definitely a pride of the collection. Got it from a really cool guy that had it up in Canada. So I was excited to get that, and obviously a lot of other cool ones that have come along the way. Like I really struggle to let any of these go. Luckily, I have 2 of these right now. I'm trying to work a trade, and I'd probably let one of those go, even though those are one of my favorite patterns. But I think that's about all I got to say about the Rosie collection. So a little update there. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little something. Feel free to let me know what I missed. For instance, what the first swedge was. That's a really interesting one that I'm going to take a note on and try and get into the end of my notes. So that's all for now. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.